We're thinking about what's the visual schedule that I can implement that's going to help them check it off and be independent, or what are the steps I need to take. Sometimes it's not about the steps you need to take, but about the steps you don't need to take, or how to change your approach so that it feels easier. These are things that I think are incredibly important to keep in mind and are not at the forefront of everybody's mind when we think about how can we help my son or daughter become more independent. Hello, YouTube fam. Welcome back to Mindshaper SLP. I am Rebecca Robbins, as usual, and I am here to help you all create fruitful and filling lives for your autistic loved ones. Today, we are going to do that by talking about a topic that impacts a lot of families, and it is the things that are barriers to your autistic loved one becoming independent with their daily living skills. I hear all the time from parents how they really wish that their child was able to be more independent with their hygiene routines. Maybe it's toothbrushing or showering or just doing things around the house like laundry, keeping their room clean, things like that. Today, I am going to talk to you about what might potentially be a barrier to success in your loved one becoming independent in those skills that you might not be considering or think about, but I see happening a lot in the families that I work with. We're going to talk about two different components. One is managing expectations, and the other is honoring sensory needs and trauma responses and or experiences. These are things that I think are incredibly important to keep in mind and are not at the forefront of everybody's mind when we think about how can we help my son or daughter become more independent. When we think about that, we're thinking about, okay, what's the visual schedule that I can implement that's going to help them check it off and be independent, or what are the steps I need to take. Sometimes it's not about the steps you need to take, but about the steps you don't need to take, or how to change your approach so that it feels easier. And remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And there is no urgency or deadline or time that your son or daughter has to reach this independence marker in order for them to be a success. Or for any reason, really, there isn't this timeline hanging over our heads that should be creating so much urgency that we feel that we have to rush towards these goals. Unless, of course, there is a medical situation involved. And I am going to talk about that as well, because when there is a health or medical situation involved, for example, dental hygiene can be really challenging for a lot of autistic individuals. And maybe it's reached a situation where the difficulty with this routine has persisted for so long and has been such a challenge that now that individual's teeth are really suffering. And maybe you've had a tough love conversation from the dentist, whether you're the autistic individual or the parent of an autistic individual, saying, you know, if this doesn't change, then we're at risk of losing some teeth here. Or if this doesn't change, then X, Y, and Z is going to happen. That would be the only circumstance where there is some sort of deadline or urgency that is imposed. However, I am still going to talk to you today about the fact that we still need to work at a snail's pace. We still need to take tiny little baby steps towards our goal and be consistent over time. And that is what will help us reach that long-term goal of a better dental hygiene routine or toothbrushing routine. Because we have to keep in mind at all times our loved one's nervous system and how triggered or safe they are feeling in their nervous system. When we're talking about an autistic individual, the sensory experience of that boy or girl or young man or young woman is often a big factor when it's coming to these self-care routines or these daily living routines. And or maybe it also has to do with their ability to physically participate in these routines because of their fine motor skills or even gross motor skills. So this is why The two things we're going to talk about today that are really going to go a long way in getting your child from where they are now to independent with these daily living skills is managing expectations and honoring sensory needs and trauma responses. For example, the toothbrushing situation. Your dentist may have, if you have an adult son or daughter, they may have read them the riot act about dental hygiene and said, look, it's time to start brushing your teeth now, or you're going to be wearing dentures. Or maybe the dentist said this to you as the parent about your child, like there's too many cavities happening here, we need to change things. So you're feeling this pressure to make big changes fast. However, if there is so much fear around this routine and resistance around this routine already, you're not going to get anywhere by trying to go from my child is not brushing their teeth at all, or if you are the autistic individual, I'm not brushing my teeth at all, to, all right, we're going to start brushing 3 minutes a day, twice a day, starting tomorrow. That's too big of a leap. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at where your child, or if you are the autistic individual listening to this, where are you in this routine right now? And just be completely honest, a no nonsense account of where I am right now. And I want it to be factual. I don't want it to have stories attached to it. So by that, I mean, for a factual account of where I am right now, maybe it's, I am not brushing my teeth at all. I am using minted tooth flossers to take food out from between my teeth. That's it. Those are facts, right? They're observable. You can see, yes, no, that is true or false. That's a fact. There's no story attached to it. I can't brush my teeth because the sight of the toothpaste or the smell of the toothpaste makes me gag. No, none of that. We're just saying this is where I am. I'm not brushing my teeth at all. I'm just using toothpicks. And if you're the parent, you're not going to say, well, I have to chase my, well, maybe that is a fact. I have to chase my child in order to get them into the bathroom. And once they're there, I have to pin them down on the floor to get them to brush their teeth. Now, I hope that's not the situation for you. And I really hope that that is not what's happening for your child to brush their teeth, because I'm sure you can see how that would be very traumatic for an individual. We're going to work towards increasing the internal safety for you if you're the autistic individual listening, or for your son or daughter if you're a parent watching. You've taken a factual stock of where you are right now in this moment, and then you want to look at what the goal is. Where do you want to go? And maybe the goal is, I want to brush my teeth for 3 minutes twice a day. Okay, great. So what we're going to do is we're going to think about what is one teeny tiny little baby step I can take in the direction of my long-term goal. Okay, well, I can tolerate putting the toothpaste on my toothbrush and smelling it. That's it. That's all I can tolerate right now. Okay, so your first goal is twice a day, you're going to go into the bathroom, put toothpaste on your toothbrush, and you're going to smell it. And do that maybe 3 or 5 times. You're going to smell the toothpaste until that feels easy. And when that feels easy, maybe the next step is twice a day, I'm going to go in and I'm going to just put the toothbrush on my front teeth, and I'm going to rub it back and forth on my front teeth only for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. That's the next baby step that I feel is just outside my comfort zone, but that I can tolerate. Same thing for your child. Maybe the first baby step is just getting them into the bathroom without a meltdown, getting them to hold the toothbrush without a meltdown, just getting them to put a wet toothbrush in their mouth with no toothpaste on it without a meltdown. Maybe that is the first baby step. There's a book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect. And that philosophy of the compound effect is that these little tiny baby steps that we take consistently over time build up to really big change. And so, yes, this feels like we're moving at a very slow, microscopic pace, but if you stay consistent with it, over time, before you know it, you've taken one giant step and you have come a long way from where you once were with that task. Then when you create a goal for yourself or for your child that is just outside the comfort zone, that's a little bit of a stretch, but still feels safe for your child's nervous system or for your nervous system, and you do it consistently, you are building up a positive momentum of change. That means that each new step you take feels easier and easier and easier. And the more that you are accomplishing those little baby goals that you set for yourself, if you're the autistic individual, and the same thing for your child or for you as the parent of an autistic child, it's building confidence. And all these things are great and go a long way towards keeping the train going towards that long-term goal. The other thing I want to talk to you about when it comes to managing expectations, especially with self-care or hygiene tasks, there is a lot of things that go into, let's say, showering, for example. There's a lot of steps and a lot of aspects that go into being able to shower independently. It isn't realistic for you to just say, okay, here's a checklist, go ahead, go in the bathroom and now go shower successfully if your son or daughter is completely dependent on you currently. So like for showering, for instance, shampooing your hair efficiently and completely is a skill. Conditioning your hair sufficiently and completely is a skill. Washing your face, washing your body. These are all separate skills that are all part of the larger context of taking a shower. Drying your body successfully, setting the water to the right temperature. There's a lot that goes into it. What I encourage you to do for those sorts of tasks where they have multiple steps, multiple components, multiple things that you actually have to become successful at. I want you to lay out all the steps, all the things that you have to do to successfully take a shower. And then you're going to take stock of what your child is currently able to do independently. And again, we're going to keep it factual. We're going to stay away from any of the stories that we're making up about why they aren't able to do it or why they're resistant. We're just sticking to the facts. If you are an autistic individual listening, you're going to do the same thing. Or maybe you need to have someone in your life, whether it's a friend or family member, help you lay out what all those tasks are, because maybe that's unclear for you, and that's okay too. Then you want to see, okay, where am I now? What's my next step towards becoming more independent with this task? And you're not going to go from, okay, I know how to turn the water on and step into the shower independently, and I'm completely dependent on assistance from there, to okay, get in the shower and shower independently. It's too much. So your first target might be shampooing your hair efficiently and completely. And there are things you can use to teach those skills, creating a video model, for instance, that maybe your son or daughter can watch before they get in the shower so they can really see what it looks like to shampoo your hair completely and efficiently. But that's not quite what this video is about, but that would be the first goal, is just that step. And then it's okay to get help for the rest of the steps. And once shampooing is accomplished, we can move on to conditioning. And once conditioning is accomplished, we can move on to washing our body efficiently. And once that's accomplished, we can move on to drying the body. So we have to take it step by step. And we can't expect that a task that is so complex and so multifaceted, such as taking a shower, is going to be able to be accomplished in one goal. We have to chunk it down. Autistic individuals have executive functioning challenges, and an executive functioning skill is being able to take a larger task and chunking it down into smaller steps. So most likely your son or daughter, or you as the autistic individual, are going to need support in knowing how to chunk down that larger multifaceted activity into smaller steps. And then you make each of those steps a goal towards independence. The next thing that I see that parents do a lot is they try to change too many things at once when it comes to independence at home and daily living skills. And this goes for anybody who is trying to implement change in their lives. If you try to do too much at once, you might start off strong and last for a few days, but ultimately it becomes too much change too fast and things start to fall apart at the seams, and we revert back to our old routines and our old habits because it's easier. When you are trying to decide how to work with your child to be independent, I know that everything feels important and everything feels urgent, but just make a list of all the things you want your child to accomplish. And again, if you're an autistic individual watching, make a list of all the things you want to accomplish. Really brain dump a whole list. And once you have that list brain dumped, look to see if there's any goals on there that can kind of be grouped together. Then you want to pick one or two goals. And if you can pick one that's called a domino goal, then this will really amplify your results, where you're still going to only be working at one thing at a time, or maybe one or two things at a time, but really seeing a ripple effect of results. A domino goal is a goal that you create that helps to knock off several goals by accomplishing that one goal. For example, you have a goal for your child to be independent in making their lunch and independent with cleaning up the dishes and putting the dishes away. So maybe the domino goal there is to focus on teaching them how to make one meal from start to finish, and the starting point is they obviously have to cook the meal, but the end point is the kitchen is cleaned up completely. By teaching that cooking of that one meal, you're teaching them independence in feeding themselves, and also teaching them how to successfully and completely clean up after themselves and clean up the dishes. Because if you can clean up the dishes from one meal, you can clean up the dishes from any meal, ideally, right? That is something that you could do too, so that you don't try to take on too many things at once. And the other thing you want to do when you have all these goals listed out is you really want to start to see, okay, well, what's the priority? And when you are thinking about priority, anything that is urgent in terms of health, medical, and safety, those are the highest priority, and those are the things that we want to target first. And other than that, maybe it's cultural importance, or maybe it's something that the child needs to be successful in an event they have coming up, or at work, or in school. So we want to look at all the things that you want to target and prioritize them, and then start with the highest priority first. And just by going through that exercise and writing down all the things you want your child to accomplish, and then making the priority list, it help set your mind at ease that you don't need to take it all on at once. You have a plan. You know that this is the most important thing to tackle first, and then I'm going to go here, and then we're going to go here. And when you do that, who knows, somewhere along the line, some of those less priority goals, you might realize maybe they're not as important as you thought they were after all, or maybe they're starting to get accomplished all on their own by targeting some of the higher priority goals. So I highly recommend taking the time to do that activity as well. The other thing when it comes to managing expectations is you want to allow your child more time. Your child is going to be unskilled at the task that they're trying to accomplish at first, and they might not do it in the way that you want them to do it, or the way that you would do it. And that's the other thing. We want to be flexible. As long as the end goal is being accomplished, allow for your child to have their own path to get there and their own routine that might look different from yours or from the norm of society, and that's okay. For example, I have a client that had a traumatic experience around seeing soap. And so washing hair independently has been a challenge. Washing dishes independently has been a challenge, because they're all activities that require soap and the use of soap. Seeing the suds is very triggering for this individual. So we're researching alternative ways to wash hair, alternative ways to wash dishes that don't include soap. And so you have to allow yourself to be open for those avenues too, because that might be what your child, what your son or daughter needs to be successful with these tasks. And they might need more time to get through the task. They might need more time to accomplish the goal, more than you even imagined that they would, and that's okay. Don't put the pressure of a timeline on. Just as long as we are making consistent, steady progress each day, that is what you need to keep coming back to. As long as there's a little bit of growth, a little bit of stretch each day, you will get there. It's okay. There is no deadline on these things. You also want to allow lots of time for your child to respond when you're interacting with them. Remember, auditory processing is challenging, and some of these activities might be challenging in their sensory system or triggering traumatic events, like this example I just gave about the soap. As such, we need to allow time for the child to ramp themselves up, to give themselves that pep talk to be able to initiate the task or even to process the directions that you're giving them to complete the task. It's okay to allow more time. And in fact, you have to allow more time. It is a big part of how we manage expectations so that you can get your child from where they are now, dependent on you, or if you're an autistic individual watching, where you are now, dependent on others, to that independence. It's part of that managing expectations. Allow lots of time, and it's okay. And don't judge the time that you need or don't need. And on that note, in respect to the soap situation that I mentioned, we have to think about how are my child's sensory experiences impacting their ability to participate in this task? How is my child's potential trauma in their past impacting them? If your child's in a state of fight, flight, or freeze when they're trying to brush their teeth, it's going to be really hard for them to make progress on that goal because they're almost being traumatized every single time if you're forcing them to brush their teeth when they're in that fight, flight, or freeze. So we have to honor these sensory needs and we have to honor these trauma responses. I've made lots of videos about the nervous system and fight, flight, or freeze. So check out my channel. I'll link one to the end of this video so you can think about strategies to help calm your child's nervous system or ways that you can honor your child's sensory needs or make an activity feel more calming or more regulating for them if the sensory component is an issue. This is a big thing that comes into play, and a big barrier to independence for many autistic individuals is that the sensory needs and the trauma responses are not taken into account. And I want you to think about something that you're super, super afraid of. For me, snakes. I'm so afraid of snakes. Funny story. I practically jumped into oncoming traffic last summer when I was visiting my cousin because we were walking along. It was like this festival or something, and there was a person there with albino snakes, these huge boa constrictors, and one person had it on their shoulders and took a step towards me, and I was out. My fight, flight, or freeze kicked in, and I flew almost into oncoming traffic. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is what I want you to think about. Let's just take toothbrushing, for example, and you're like, it's just put it in your mouth. Just, it's not a big deal. Just do it. Just, you're making it worse than it seems. Just do it. Just do it. I want you to think to yourself, if someone told you to stick your hand in a bucket of snakes and hold it there for 30 seconds, and then they were like, what's the big deal? Just do it. Just put your hand in. It'll be over before you know it. Just do it. It would be really challenging for you to do it. It wouldn't feel that easy. And sometimes these daily living skills, especially these hygiene routines, they can feel that way for an autistic individual. It can feel like you're asking them to put their hand in a bucket of snakes. So I ask that you just keep that in mind to help you regulate your own level of patience when it comes to this, because there is a lot of patience that is required. It is going to take time and it is going to feel slow and laborful, and that's okay. Because what's going to happen is over time, you're going to look back and see big changes that were made because you allowed your child the time and space you needed to feel safe and take baby steps from where you are now to where you want to go. So there you go. That's all I want to give you for today to chew on. Your action steps are to think about the goals you have for your child, do that brain dump of all the goals, make a priority list, and then see if any of those can be domino goals, where if you target that one, a few of the other goals are going to be crossed off the list as well. The other thing is to think about a task that you want your child to be independent with and write out all the steps that are involved in that task, and then think about what is the first baby step towards that task. And remember, what we're aiming for is consistency of success and positive momentum. So even if the first goal, for example, with toothbrushing is you're going to just brush those two front teeth for 10 seconds, if your child can do that for a week, 2 weeks, and it starts to feel easy, now all of a sudden we can expand to the two front teeth and the two on the sides and just build upon it over time. That's your homework assignment. In the comments below, let me know what were some takeaways you got from today. What are some questions you have about maybe a daily living activity that you're having a struggle with yourself, or if you're a parent for your child and you need help figuring out what that first baby step might be? I love problem solving. It's actually like one of my strengths. It's one of the reasons why I love doing parent consulting, is because it's about looking at a situation and problem solving solutions. I really love that. So I'd love to do that for you in the comments below. So let me know. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share. See you next time I pop up on your screen. Take care.